A young couple, madly in love, stands at the edge of a cliff, overlooking the vast emptiness below. To the world, they are the perfect pair, inseparable, passionate, and adventurous. But what happens when that love transforms into something sinister? When devotion turns to destruction? This is the chilling story of a romance that spiraled into a crime so twisted, it left an entire nation in shock. Welcome to From Lovers to Killers, the twisted tales of true crime couples. If you're fascinated by stories of love, betrayal, and crime, make sure you subscribe and tell a friend. To understand this chilling case, we must go back to where it all began: Daytona Beach, Florida, 2013. This is where Tiffany Sanders and Mark Holloway first met. She was a 22-year-old aspiring photographer with an infectious smile and dreams of traveling the world. He was a 25-year-old former high school football star, known for his charm and an easygoing demeanor. Together, they were the couple everyone envied. Beautiful, passionate, and seemingly unbreakable. But behind closed doors, their love story was anything but perfect. Friends recall a toxic pattern: intense fights followed by passionate reconciliations. Their love was fiery, consuming, and, as we would soon learn, incredibly dangerous. Mark had always been the life of the party, the guy who could make anyone laugh. But Tiffany's love for him quickly turned possessive. Friends say she hated when other women so much as looked at him. Her jealousy was not just emotional, it was physical. Mark often showed up to work with fresh scratches on his arms, which he brushed off as nothing. Tiffany, on the other hand, had a troubled past that many didn't know about. Growing up in a broken home, she had witnessed the worst kinds of love, the kind that left bruises, both physical and emotional. Some say that trauma shaped her idea of relationships. Others believe it simply fueled her obsession with control. Their love was a storm waiting to break. Despite the constant arguments, they moved in together just 6 months after meeting. Their fights escalated behind the closed doors of their tiny apartment, neighbors reporting hearing shouting matches at all hours of the night. But what made this relationship different from any other volatile romance was the way Mark responded. He never left. No matter how bad things got, he always stayed. And that decision would prove to be fatal. The warning signs were there. In the weeks leading up to the tragedy, Mark confided in his best friend, saying he felt like a prisoner in his own home. "She watches my every move," he had texted one night. "If I leave, I don't think she'll let me go alive." His friend begged him to get out, but Mark simply replied, "I love her. I can't just walk away." It was a balmy summer night, August 4th, 2015, when everything changed. Tiffany and Mark were on a road trip through Georgia, their car packed with camping gear and supplies for what was supposed to be a romantic getaway. But by sunrise, one of them would be dead. The couple had set up camp deep in the woods, far from civilization. The fire crackled, casting flickering shadows on the trees around them. At first, everything seemed normal. But as the night dragged on, tension simmered beneath the surface. Witnesses at a nearby campsite later recalled hearing loud arguing echoing through the trees. Then suddenly silence. At 1:48 a.m., a single, chilling scream shattered the quiet. A desperate cry for help that quickly faded into the night. Minutes later, Tiffany staggered onto the dirt path leading to the main road, her clothes soaked in blood, her breath ragged. She frantically waved down a passing car, her face contorted in terror. The driver, startled, immediately called 911. When first responders arrived at the scene, they found Mark lying near the remains of the fire, his body eerily still. A deep wound to his chest had bled profusely, staining the ground beneath him. Tiffany sat nearby, rocking back and forth, muttering incoherently. Her hands trembled as she clutched the bloodied knife. Tiffany claimed it had been an accident, that Mark had attacked her first, and she had simply acted in self-defense. But something about the scene felt off. Investigators noted that the campsite was relatively undisturbed. There were no overturned chairs, no signs of a struggle beyond Mark's fallen body. If there had been a fight, it hadn't lasted long. The medical examiner would later confirm what detectives suspected. Mark's wound was a singular, precise strike, delivered with force. There were no defensive wounds on his body. No evidence that he had tried to shield himself from an attack. In other words, he never saw it coming. Blood spatter analysis further contradicted Tiffany's version of events. The trajectory of the blood indicated that Mark had been sitting when he was stabbed, not lunging as Tiffany had claimed. The patterns suggested a sudden, deliberate act rather than a chaotic struggle. As the night wore on, detectives pressed Tiffany for more details. Her story shifted. First, she claimed Mark had been holding the knife when she grabbed it from him. Then, she said she couldn't remember exactly what happened. The inconsistencies piled up, making it increasingly difficult to believe that this was an act of self-defense. By sunrise, one thing was clear: this wasn't a tragic accident. It was premeditated murder. But investigators weren't so sure. As detectives dug deeper, they uncovered a web of lies, jealousy, and manipulation. Neighbors reported violent fights. Mark's family shared unsettling text messages where he hinted at fear of Tiffany's temper. And then there was the forensic evidence. The angle of the wound suggested a deliberate downward thrust, not a defensive act. And the blood spatter analysis contradicted Tiffany's claims. Experts determined that the pattern of blood droplets indicated Mark had been stationary when attacked, not moving aggressively. There were no signs of self-defense on Tiffany's body, no bruises, no scratches. Further analysis of the knife revealed no fingerprints other than Tiffany's. No evidence that Mark had even touched the weapon. DNA analysis confirmed that Mark had no defensive wounds, meaning he never had the chance to fight back. Combined with Tiffany's erratic statements and the lack of physical evidence supporting her claims, detectives knew they were dealing with something far darker than a tragic accident. Tiffany's trial captivated the nation. At first, the prosecution struggled to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that this was premeditated murder. The defense painted Tiffany as a battered woman, forced to defend herself from an abusive partner. Friends testified about Mark's controlling tendencies, and for a moment, it seemed as though Tiffany might walk free. But then, forensic analysts uncovered an irrefutable piece of evidence. Mark's blood was found inside the trunk of Tiffany's car. This discovery suggested that rather than calling for help immediately, she had attempted to move his body before concocting her self-defense story. The jury deliberated for just 4 hours before delivering their verdict: guilty of first-degree murder. Cases like these remind us just how unpredictable human nature can be. If you're fascinated by stories of love, betrayal, and crime, make sure you subscribe and tell a friend about this channel. Tiffany was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The courtroom remained silent as the judge read her sentence. No outbursts, no tears, just an eerie acceptance of fate. Mark's family sat in the front row, clutching onto one another as justice was served. But for them, no sentence could bring back their son. No courtroom decision could erase the pain of losing him so brutally. Even now, years later, Tiffany's case remains a subject of debate. Some still believe she acted in self-defense. Others see her as a master manipulator who knew exactly what she was doing. But the evidence doesn't lie. Love is supposed to be built on trust, respect, and compassion. But when obsession, jealousy, and violence seep in, it can turn into something deadly. The story of Tiffany Sanders and Mark Holloway is a haunting reminder that not all love stories have happy endings. Some end in tragedy, leaving behind nothing but heartbreak and unanswered questions. What do you think? Was Tiffany a victim of circumstance or a cold-blooded killer? Let us know in the comments below. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more true crime stories. Until next time, stay safe.